everyone, and welcome back to the Weekly Awakening. It's your host, Colleen, aka the Hair Healer. I hope everyone had a fabulous weekend, a fabulous week, and is surviving your Mars ingressing into Cancer. I know I slowly am, and as I talked last week, and I premiered this as the new title of the Hair Healer podcast, the Weekly Awakening, and switched some things around, Mars had left my career house, and some other new changes have unfolded that I will talk about on next week's episode. I am not going to be talking about on this week's episode, but next week I will. Again, I want to thank everyone for your immense support last week of just like, I'm excited about this, sending more suggestions, telling me what you love about it. I mean, seriously, thank you. And everyone that sends me those messages, like, you know, I don't know if you need to hear this, but you're really helping me along in my journey. Thank you. Thank you. I absolutely need to hear that still to this day in those messages. So I greatly appreciate that. And thank you so much for rocking it out with me. Whew, it has been, what a year. What a year. As my business plans, my career, things are starting to make sense again. It's been a little bit lost this past year, and I've been really thinking about the past year, and it wasn't necessarily about me creating or working or building. Yes, I did all those things, but this last year was really about me finding myself again as a single woman in my 30s, a single mom, and divorced, and working through all these patterns that you know, I had accumulated or built over in relationships in my 20s. And it's been amazing to reflect, like, since I said I'm not going back to the salon in June, and I said I'm going to branch out, I'm going to do these things. This really has been a year about myself and learning and believing in myself and creating and not creating, because the truth is things have been hitting a wall and getting crazy, and mostly because my mental, spiritual, and emotional energy, let's leave spiritual out of there actually, just my mental and emotional energy has been all over the place, and I'm like, I can't focus, and because of that, my spiritual energy in somewhat is failing. So it was like, I think at the end of this year, I had sort of this breakdown, and now I'm ready to rebuild, and I'm like, I finally feel like I have the path. Which is funny, because when we're on the path, because the path changes and evolves every day, because we only have this moment, it goes through waves of feeling like I have the path and I don't have the path. But when we feel like we don't have the path, we're in the grinding. Imagine we're in the soul work then, right? When we feel like we're lost, we're actually deep in soul work. And that's what I can reflect on this past year. Holy crap, this whole past year, yes, it was about business and the hair healer and the podcast and building that. But it was actually much more about my soul transformation and building myself. So we'll talk. I can't get too much into it because I'll have the new business and surprise and all the new information stuff that's happening. Not business yet, but the shifts in my business and career. I have another new announcement again I'll have next week, and I will tie that into, I'm going to tie this week's Weekly Awakening and next week's Weekly Awakening in with that as far as my personal awareness. But let's jump into the astrology of the week, because today we have, actually it was yesterday, I'm recording it today, but it was yesterday, or this evening it's happening, Mercury moving into Gemini. So it's the first one. Venus is coming in behind shortly after, but this is a really fun time for Mercury. It's in one of its home signs, one of its home placements of Gemini. And particularly being in Gemini, right? The fast moving, the talking, the thinking, the excitement, when it's in that home sign, there are going to be, for one, a lot of new, again, so, sorry, that's my Gemini in general, and I will say a bunch of words and things at one time, it doesn't make sense. Before I start this, check what house in your chart does Gemini rule, okay? Because that's going to be where a lot of these things are happening, okay, as Mercury moves into there. And so with that, you're going to see a lot of positive changes, though. More than in general when Mercury moves, when it's in its home sign in Gemini, you're going to see some changes, and it could be thoughts, right? Gemini is the thinker, and it could be, in Mercury's the thinker, so it could be new thoughts, new transformations. For, in general, if let's say Gemini rules your 10th house of career, and Mercury moved in there, you might be implementing some new strategies. You might have some new downloads of how to take something. It's going to be easier. Communication in general is going to be much, much easier. It's going to feel like it's flowing. It won't feel so restricted. You'll be able to think faster on your feet and be talking faster on your feet, you know. And again, And revisions. I'm really excited about this transit. I feel like I get excited every year that Mercury moves into my home sign. I'm a Gemini, and again, totally, 4 big placement rules, ruled of Gemini. And so this is happening in my career house, and I'm going to be making some announcements and some exciting things there. But again, I think for me personally, as I see this happening, I'm going to be able to mentally say, okay, now I can implement the strategy. Does that make sense? All of a sudden, the thoughts or the ideas that make sense, that are connecting your projects, connecting yourself, are just going to make sense pretty soon. It's going to be like, oh, wait, that's how I do it. Why didn't I think about that? You'll also be much more open-minded. And with Venus moving in there, okay, you're going to be much more open-minded in relationships and partnerships, probably a lot more harmonious things happening with love, friendship, our aesthetics. I always like to say this is a fun time too with Venus in there as rules. One of the things that rules is our aesthetics. So to try something a little more fun, right? See what new fashion is in for 2021 summertime, because I know we're all slowly coming out of that not retrograde. Oh my God. Actually, that is perfect because COVID feels like one giant retrograde. That's what it felt like. That just hit me. COVID had felt like Mercury and Mars were in retrograde the entire time. That's the best way to describe what COVID was like. But with Venus, so now the world's opening back up, and we're trying new things, and we're trying new hair, and we're trying new clothes. So just as something as simple when Venus moves into Gemini as changing your style might change your whole energy, your whole flow, right? So see what's in style and say, I'm ready for a brand new beginning, because we're headed right into the brand new world now. That's what's happening. So how can you make that shift? And we have Mercury to go mentally. How can we make that shift, right? How can we implement some self-help, some excitement, some knowledge, some downloads, some wisdom? And then with Venus, how can we take that and transform that on the outside? How can we, the other day I redid someone's actually, it wasn't someone, it was my mother. Shout out Diane Libby. Everyone knows her. If you know her, you know her. And she's the worst client I've ever had, but I love her. She's my mother. We fight every time I do her hair, and we argue. So, and I'm not the best hairstylist to her either. That is the truth. But I did her hair the other day, and we just did something bright red, kind of similar to mine, and she's always had red too, on and off like me, and we hadn't done that, and she felt so good. All right, just like that. She was like, I'm ready to start getting my nails done again, Colleen. I'm just ready to do this. I'm ready to go shopping and get a new wardrobe. Sometimes having just that outer change, yeah, it's about the inner work, but sometimes we need that outer change to just all of a sudden, it's like a little shot of adrenaline, like a beauty adrenaline. Okay, I'm ready to go. And now all of a sudden she's like feeling good. So she's implementing other things. She's talking about going to therapy. I don't think that did not go hand in hand, the hair and the therapy, but like it does with you guys, but just something like that. Like, I'm just going to go out of the box. I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to do something open-minded, something totally different, and it's going to feel good. And with your love, I always love to talk about Venus when we have Venus and Mercury. Again, there might be, it's going to be easier flowing. It's going to be easier flowing if you're dating, just sort of communicating and reaching out to people. That's going to go much easier. You're probably going to want to search or feel the need to search out a deeper mental connection, whether in your partner, whether in a friendships, or whether you're dating. It's probably going to feel like, wait, this deeper connection, this mental, this needing to talk for hours and have this deep conversation is going to be very important and something you're going to seek out during this time. Not just because we spent the last year or so alone, but with this transit as well. So it's a good time to be open with that. And maybe not always, I don't know why this is coming to me, but like judge a book by its cover with friendships and with beauty and love. Not beauty, just friendship is in love. Sometimes I always say I could probably judge a book a little bit more by its cover. I'm like the opposite. I judge it. I don't at all. I see the little inner child, whatever, in people. But oftentimes, if you are someone who judges a book by its cover because you're not fully open-minded to a lot of things, and I like to say that's our astro placement. Some of us, if you have a lot of Mercury, you're going to be very open-minded, but this is be more open-minded. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like, again, in those areas of work, friendship, aesthetic, love, be more open-minded. How can you evolve past that? Because when you're not open, You can't see something happening because you're not open-minded enough to see it. That's why you can't see it. Everything is an evolution of thought, no matter what it is. So the direct answer of what not open-mindedness is, I don't think any of that was English, so don't mind me. The direct is like, okay, someone says, try this, and you're saying, no, I'm not trying that. I know it's not going to work. It's not going to be for me. It's not going to do that. What is that? That's being closed-minded. How do you know? Because you actually do not know until you evolve the mind and take the mind to another place to actually think that that would work for you. Because I can tell you, there are things a few years ago, last year, a year ago, that I thought there's no way I would ever think that, feel that, or do that. Sometimes I was forced to be open-minded, and it was like, holy crap, of course I could do that or evolve to that. And sometimes it was just by choice, me, again, just being sort of naturally open-minded, and I jumped to that. So take these lessons with Mercury moving into Gemini and Venus moving into Gemini to just be open and flowing and seeing both sides to things too, because Mercury can see both sides to everything. It's a double moving, it's double moving planet, and it changes on the characteristics that it becomes closest to and each sign. So there will be probably seeing both sides to every story, and sometimes that can create a little bit of conflict just in general, but at the same time it brings so much greater awareness, because for me, let's say just politics right now, it's not about Republican, Democrat. It is, I can see both sides to the story. I'm apolitical. That's just, I'm not going to get into that, but that's my choice of where I stand, and I have my beliefs to that, but I can see both sides of the story, and I can play. I almost feel like a spectator up here, and that's with a lot of things in my life, and that is very Mercury rolled. So there might be situations where you're, being brought to you where you can see both sides to that, and you can see the value, and it's good to have that, because then you can break it down both ways. And in general, what I know is if I think that I absolutely know what the answer is, whether, again, that be politics or life or anything in general. I hate politics, but it's just easy to give as an example. I'm wrong, right? When I think I know everything, I think I know the exact answer, the exact way, the exact whatever it is, I oftentimes am wrong, because the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And everything we think and see is a perception. You can't see, in someone else what you don't first see in yourself, and that goes for what you like and what you don't like. It's unfortunate, and a lot of times we see what we don't like in ourselves in other people, and that annoys us, and that creates a lot of conflict and inner conflict, as we know. And I'm sure I'll have lots of awakenings of that, because I've had a lot of growing through awakenings of just not taking things personal, radical acceptance. And the more I grow, the more I evolve, the more I understand myself and how I work and my workings, the less and less and less I take personal of what people say to me. Maybe this is the weekly awakening, because I feel like my awakening this week, because I will tie it into the story, but I feel like the weekly awakening I was planning for today, my awareness, is going to be too tied into next week's, and I don't want to accidentally slip up what I was going to say next week, and so it will be like a big weekly awakening that has started a few weeks ago. But we will say this. This is this week's weekly awakening that I'm just going to announce right now in this moment. I decided to go there and save the following for next week. Is what I was just talking about, to hop back onto that horse of the evolution of people and not being able to see that. When I grow, when I change, when I shift, when I evolve, I'm leveling up with people, with friends and things like that, and I see what's no longer important. I'm a reformed gossiper. I mean, I still love to hear a good story once in a while, honestly, but not too much, because, nothing negative. But when as being in the hair industry, we're gossipers, we're talkers, we're interested, the barber, the hair industry. And when I first started out in this industry, and I hated myself, and I was depressed, and I was this, and I was drug addict, I talked about people all the time, because that's what it was a way to take out of myself, and I didn't understand myself. So unfortunately, people bond that way, right? They have learned, society has taught people to bond through negatively talking. And eventually, I got into a program that started to show me things about myself and accept spiritual principles. And the more I evolved and more I grew, and now all the self-care stuff I do, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't give a shit about people. I give a shit about people, but I don't care about their lives. I don't care about judgment. I don't care about talking about people. I don't want to do that. Like that's people, that's their lives, that's their evolution. So since I got good with myself in so many ways, I don't even judge people. That's not a problem. I mean, occasionally maybe, if you murdered like your grandma and then ate her body, I might judge you, and maybe some other sick things along those lines. But in general, the more you understand, like, I have no judgment, right? Everyone has their own place, their own faith, their own life, their own will. And the things that I was judging in other people was something I didn't like about myself oftentimes, or again, I just wasn't happy and I wanted a distraction outside of myself. So I talked about others. And once I grew beyond that, it's been many years and I've grown. I'm not perfect, but with that, I still slip up. But once I have grown, I just was like, I don't even care. So I heard something about myself. I had this weird interaction with someone a few months ago, and I knew it was weird. I could sense it. And this person was someone I kind of always wanted to be friend or try. I knew him in a 12-step fellowship. I would try. I always felt like a forced friendship. Like they're kind of a negative person. I just wanted them to like me. And I always thought that maybe they didn't, or they just sort of played with me, but were sort of frenemies, were jealous or envious or whatever. And I kind of got, even though I haven't seen them in a long time, I ran into them and I kind of got this confirmation, like after the interaction was sort of weird with these two people, like, oh yeah, it turns out they really don't like me, and they sort of talk about me and kind of make fun of me and my purpose. And old Colleen, even maybe 2 or 3 years ago, would have really let that rock her, or wanted to say this or wanted to say that. But I had this, and when I mean like instant reaction, because for me, that's what I'm so scared of oftentimes in myself with certain confrontations or hearing certain things. Like I don't want to hear, what people say about me is none of my business. But in this situation, I didn't want to know, but I did get confirmation in my energy what I had thought. But I was like, my instant reaction is always the scariest. I hate that feeling, whatever it is. It didn't even hurt. My instant reaction was kind of like, you were right, Colleen. And I kind of laughed it off, and I did not care what they said. I did not care to talk about them, nor did I even care. Like, I wasn't even mad. I said, I wish them the best. I mean, you can stay out of my life and never take a peek back into my life again, but I wish you nothing but the best. And for me, I reflected a little bit. My feelings weren't hurt. There was understanding, because I've gotten so good with who I am, who I've become, so sure of myself that I know I'm not for everyone. I'm a lot. I'm a big effing personality, if you know me, and I'm crazy in all the best ways and some of the worst ways, but in most of the best ways. And so I'm not for everyone, and no one is for everyone. And so many people have issues anyways of not liking people because it's their own reflection of hating themselves. So my weekly awakening was there, was to see the growth and to see that, wow, you've really grown, and that personal reflection these people have of you has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. And I hope with that long-winded story, that's the point I got across. In all my years of doing hair, even still working with clients in astrology, energy healing, the number one thing I find that causes people anxiety, what they are bothered by so much, is what they said to someone else and how that might have been perceived. Almost every time you tail things back, or I hear what's bothering people, or what people are really nervous about when they have certain interactions with people, is what they may have said to them and how people take that. So think about that. When you're having all these interactions with people, half that person's probably worried about how they were to you versus what you said to them. And if you actually did say something really, really bad, the truth is you already know that. And then that passes too. People forget. So that's where the weekly awakening went this week. Just know, if you're worried about what people think, if you hear something about yourself, if you have haters, and haters is everywhere. It's not just me having a podcast and a small social media personality. It's everywhere. It's in a workplace. It's in a salon. It's in a community, a townhouse community, we'll say. It's in all these different things. You're just gonna have some haters sometimes, and you need to know that it's not about you. It's about them. It's about them. So let that go. Don't take personal. Know that you're a beautiful effing being. And one of the ways I think I got into self-awareness too, there's thousands of ways why I did, is because no one can hurt me if I don't know those